Hey, my dating experience in DC. Don't date. Don't date in DC. Like there's always something to do in DC. You can like if you really try, you can genuinely find something new to do every single day.
What is a DC myth that you want to debunk?
I think a DC myth that I want to debunk is...
Hi everyone, you're listening to Transplants, the advice podcast for city transplants navigating a big move and all the things that come with it, like dating, apartment hunting, making new friends, and everything in between. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest to talk about all the things that come with living in DC. Apartment hunting, where to go if you want to be outside, and all that fun stuff. So, to kick us off for season 3, hello, welcome guest. Please tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're passionate about.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy. I am the brother of our lovely host here. And let's talk about what I do. I am a federal tech consultant working in the DC area. I don't actually work in DC proper. I work in Arlington, which is about 10 to 15 minutes outside of DC, but you know, still DMV area. In terms of things that I'm passionate about, very passionate about creating content, creating memories, and just living life to the fullest.
Period. So Jeremy lives in the DMV area, which is a very rapidly going place, especially for young people, young transplants who are trying to explore a new city. Jeremy's been here for a little bit over a year. I just moved here a month ago. So this episode is not only for you guys, but for myself as well on all the things that come with living in DC. So without further ado, I would love for you to talk about your process as a transplant, like what brought you to the city and how you kind of navigating the moving process of getting here.
Hey, okay. What brought me to the city was the job. Actually, I was about to graduate college and was looking for jobs. You know, the job market is terrible now, but just doing as much as I can to try to stay in Texas because that was what I knew and that was what I was familiar with. I wanted to either be in Houston or Dallas because family is all in Dallas, and then Houston, you know, just having went to school there, it would have made sense to also stay there as well. But unfortunately, you know, that just wasn't in my plans, in the cards for me. So when I got this job offer and they told me I was moving to Virginia, I was like, Virginia, And you know, I think everyone kind of thinks the same thing when they think Virginia. They think very deep South Virginia kind of thing, but Northern Virginia is a completely different ball game, and a lot of people from Northern Virginia really just say DC because DC is a hop skip away, like you can see it from your window kind of thing. In terms of the moving process, it was a lot going into it just because when I got out of school, I graduated in May and I was supposed to start in July. So it was like a 2-month period of, okay, now you have to apartment shop. You have to, you know, figure out what area you're going to live in because I had to live within a 90-minute radius of my office. So it gave me a lot of free range in terms of living in DC, living in Maryland, or living in Virginia. So my mom and I took a flight up here, I would say maybe 2 weeks after my graduation, and we just spent the entire weekend just apartment shopping. I was looking at places, but as soon as I got the job offer, I was already just kind of like making a list and starting to mentally go down and check off different things. And when we took that weekend tour, that was when I was able to actually see everything in person and then make a final decision, get the application ready and do all of that. And then figure out all of the moving logistics in terms of like, okay, how am I going to, you know, what am I going to bring with me? How am I going to get my car there? How am I going to get my clothes and all of my trinkets and gadgets? That was a long and strenuous process, but we made it. And I'm happy to say that I had a lot of support going into it. Yeah.
Amen. Is there anything that you would do differently during that moving process if you could, like looking back?
Honestly, I think in that short time, we accomplished a lot and did very well. I think it was very efficient because after you moved to Ohio, we already had a lot of prior experience of like, okay, we know how to do this, we know how to do that. I didn't bring a lot of belongings with me. I had maybe 3 boxes, and then the rest of my stuff was brought in suitcases. Me and my
Yep.
parents, when Southwest, back when they had the free suitcases,
Ah.
we took 6 suitcases full of stuff.
Yep.
And that, I think, was really efficient in terms of space saving and saving money as well. So I only shipped 3 boxes, and then having the family discount, that helped a lot. And then having the support system of the family to come up there and help me actually get things into the apartment, get the keys, all of that. I think that was really well done. I would say if I could change anything about moving, I would say I would actually change my moving process from Alexandria to Arlington, because I did that on my own with my car rather than renting a U-Haul. And I did it over the course of like 2 months, because I signed a new lease. That was 2 months later than my lease was ending. And so I was just taking things back and forth in my car for like
Ooh.
2 months, and it was just not fun. It was very strenuous.
Yeah. In that little Lexus.
Yeah, that car is not big. So I wish I would have just set aside 1 or 2 weekends, got a U-Haul, and then just done everything just to be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay. Luckily, we both like moved across states after we graduated and had like the support of our parents and our family. But is there anything that you would say to those who are navigating a big move by themselves? Any tips or any just general advice that you would share with them?
I would say it's going to be tough. You're going to cry, you know, but having people around you, if you don't have family, reaching out to friends, reaching out to anybody that might be able to help you. Even if you don't have friends that may be able to help you. There's a lot of Facebook groups and different forums and things where you can find people who are also moving to new cities or who are getting rid of things. I feel like that was a really big thing for me, was, leaving and not having community up here. Obviously, after my parents left, I was kind of up here by myself. And so, reaching out to people on Facebook or, Bumble BFF or different things like that to get the help and the support that you need, because people are a lot friendlier than you think. You kind of get to a new place and you're like, oh my gosh, like nobody's gonna like me, I'm not gonna have any help or anything like that. But people are really willing to help, and you just have to be able to actually ask for it.
You kind of touched on the feelings that can come with moving and being in a new place, especially by yourself. But before coming here, did you have any fears about, what could be on the other side, and how did you overcome them?
Yes, my biggest fear was losing, the sense of community. I feel like my entire life was spent in Texas. All my family's in Dallas, and then I built a community in my years of undergrad at Houston, and my biggest fear was leaving all of that behind, because when I graduated high school, there's a lot of people from high school that I don't talk to anymore, and so getting that same feeling graduating from undergrad, I'm like, wow, like I'm really leaving. Like I'm not even leaving like undergrad only, I'm leaving like the state. So how am I gonna keep up with these connections, and are all my friends gonna forget about me, that kind of thing. And then coming to a new place, like I've never had to be dropped in a completely new place and just be like, okay, like you don't have any prior connection, you have to build it from the ground up. So that was my biggest fear. And I think what really helped me was at work, we have a starting cohort. So when you start your job, you'll come in with a group of people who are also starting their job, and they may be also fresh out of college, or, fresh out of their masters, or maybe just transitioning to a new job. And I think that helped us really bond, because a lot of people also moved for the job, and they were also sharing the same fears. And so us being able to bond on that, and us being, it's our first job, it's our first time in the area, we got to explore and do a lot of things together. I know that's not feasible for everybody. Some people move and they don't have a starting cohort, which I think, getting out and experiencing community, like going to different third places, like things that you enjoyed doing back in your hometown, going to coffee shops or going to a run club or different things like that, just going to things like that, in your new city, even if it's alone. It may be scary at first, but that's where you'll find people with common interests, and you'll be able to start to kind of build that community.
I also, when I graduated, was in the same boat in terms of work and starting in a cohort with like people who are fresh out of undergrad, moved from a different place, and were trying to like make new connections. So I was able to experience that as well and leverage that environment to make new friends when I first moved to Ohio. But now I was brought to DC for a new job. And in this instance, since I'm a couple years into my career, I'm just like plopped into the role. It's not like a program where you're starting with other people and like seeing consistent faces every single day. The consistent faces I see are just like my regular coworkers and not people who are like navigating a new city as well. So I'm definitely navigating a different, I guess, environment than I first was when I was straight out of undergrad, which is kind of nerve-wracking, but exciting as well. I think the whole coworkers thing can kind of like raise a couple of red flags to people because it's like, why are you going to be friends with your coworkers? But you never know what can arise out of those connections. Like maybe your coworker can introduce you to someone else who becomes like your best friend, or they just introduce you to new spots that you wouldn't have known before. So I think just going into those situations and those relationships with an open mind is something to keep top of mind, because you can't put expectations on these new connections that you're making because you never know what they could evolve into.
Agreed. I think we need to discuss the fact that people don't want to be friends with their coworkers. I understand why, because some people are not the best. But if you have a good level of discernment and you know the kind of people you like to be around, just kind of talking to the kind of coworkers that you would like to be around.
Exactly.
That's all it is. Like I room with one of my coworkers now because, we all went to a brunch together, and two of us we were looking for a new place to live, and they were like, oh, why don't you guys just room together? And that's how it came to fruition. So
period. I definitely have coworkers like from my previous role that I like keep in contact with, and like we're actual friends. So keep an open mind when navigating these new relationships, because you never know what could arise. Okay, let's get into like the nitty gritty of DC, aka Chocolate City. So earlier you mentioned that you moved from Arlington to Alexandria, and you moved from living alone to living with a roommate. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because something that is very much top of mind for everyone is the cost of living. And it's very easy for people to, scroll on social media and see people who are living the high life, living in a high rise, always out on the weekends. And like, it seems like they're living their best life, but you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Like, AKA they're living with a roommate, or they're maxing out their credit cards, or this, that, and the third. So can you talk about how that experience was from, living alone to like living with a roommate?
The first thing I would say is humble yourself.
Ooh.
Humble yourself. I know you see, like you said, on social media, people are, traveling every day. They're living in these nice high-rise apartments. The apartment might be 400 square feet, and they are struggling to, to pay that every month. They might be paying, 75% of their paycheck towards that and maxing out their credit cards, like you said. It's so, like, you just have to get off the internet and live in the real world, and you'll see that people are genuinely making a living, living in a comfortable apartment, that they can comfortably afford. You don't have to have all of the crazy amenities, the pools, the saunas, all of those things, because I didn't have that when I moved here. I needed something that was affordable, that was in my budget, and that was it. But going back to the point of living alone versus living with a roommate, I was scared about that because obviously cost of living is higher here. And I could reasonably afford my place, but obviously it's always nice to save additional money.
Yep.
And having interesting roommate experiences in college, I was like, okay, I don't know if I want to go back to
Right.
living with other people, just because people can be weird, can be dirty, messy, so it was just a process of like going back and forth, like prioritizing, do I want to save money or do I want to save my peace? And sometimes money makes more sense. Sometimes money makes more sense. I know it can be annoying, but even if you do it for 1, 2, 3 years, and you make sure that you're prioritizing saving that money, like the money that you our saving is actually going towards saving and not towards additional spending, then you'll be able to actually comfortably afford a new place, as you move into a new space. And the transition was much easier than I thought. I feel like we got a very sizable place, and we split, our everything is, split down the middle, and we both work from home, so we're both in our rooms. A lot of times we kind of forget that we live with each other because he'll be out traveling or I'll be out traveling, and it's just like, but it was an easy adjustment, just kind of like having set proper expectations and guidelines and everything beforehand.
Yeah.
And I think that's another additional piece is like when you live with people, even if it's like someone that you don't know, you want to make sure that you set those expectations up front, because people are not mind readers. So, if
Amen.
There's something that they're doing that you don't like and you haven't told them, they're not going to know, and then it becomes a bigger issue later on.
Exactly. Like when you were living in the dorms and your RA made you sign that little agreement, that little sheet of paper. Don't exactly like print a piece of paper out now, but that practice of like setting those rules and expectations with each other is very, very important. On that note, something that is also very much a topic of conversation in our generation is dating and meeting new people. So I'd love to dive into the dating scene in DC. What brings me to that is, did having a roommate affect your, I guess, attractiveness to other people? Because on social media, a lot of younger women are like, he needs to provide, he needs to live in a high rise, live on his own, have 10,000 jobs, invest in the stock market, all these different things. And obviously it's not everyone, but a lot of younger women are like looking for that quote unquote soft life and looking for their man to be the provider. So do you feel like that implicated how you showed up in the dating space / what has been your dating experience in DC?
Hey, my dating experience in DC. Don't date. Don't date in DC. I'm kidding. I'm partially kidding. But I don't think it's impacted my ability at all. Actually, I think it may have impacted my ability to provide in a positive way, because I'm saving more money. I can spend more on dates, and gifts and different things like that. But all of the things that you see online about, soft life, I want the man to be the provider, I want him to have his own place, all of those things really only exist on the internet. If you're meeting people in real life and they are actually a genuine good person and their mind is not, run by everything that they see on the internet, they're not going to care. I don't think I've had a single person who has cared that I had a roommate, and if the person does care about that, is that even the right kind of person that you want to be associated with or be around?
That part. Great point. I feel like a lot of the people that I've met thus far have been really great, very welcoming. And I know, like, as I continue to venture out in the city, I'll continue to find those people. But from your experience, having lived in DC for the past year or so and experienced a lot more of the city than I have, what would you say are some of the best things about living in DC, as well as some of the worst things?
I'm going to start with the worst.
Oh, okay.
The worst things, the traffic cameras. They won't pull you over, but you will get the bill in the mail. You will get that bill in the mail. So make sure you are watching your speed where those cameras are. Another thing, the roads in comparison to Texas, very small. Speed limits are so much slower. The traffic is bad. I thought Texas traffic was bad. This is worse.
Terrible.
So bad. The winters are brutal. As a Texan who, we may have
we're suffering bad.
I think the most we ever got in our lifetime was maybe 5 inches or something.
No, we had that the Snowmageddon snowstorm in 2021.
Yeah.
That was a couple inches. That was humbling for real.
But it doesn't hold a candle to anything I've had. I've had to dig my car out. When I first moved here, I didn't have a garage. And so my car was buried in, I think maybe 7 inches of snow. And I didn't have a shovel because from a Texan, like I've never had to shovel snow.
Yep.
I was using my dustpan to dig my car out. It took me like 2 hours.
The dustpan.
I even broke it.
Of course. That is humbling. Oh, yeah. I remember driving this most recent winter storm and like just driving in like neighborhoods where people's cars were behind the snow that they plowed. I said,
Yeah.
is that legal for them to plow it and just push it on people's cars? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but we'll see. I feel like I've been driving recently. I've been catching myself speeding more frequently, and I'm like, dang, I feel like there's a bill in the mail. I'm scared, but we'll see.
But
We'll
nobody
see.
cares here. People, they drive like they
Right.
just know it's coming. They don't care.
Right.
But
Ah,
yeah,
I don't want to pay $300 though. That's too much.
yeah, it's bad. But the positive things about living in DC, I think if you're an active person or if you're somebody who's aspiring to be active, this is the place to be. People, it doesn't matter, rain or shine, 8-degree weather, people are outside running, cycling.
I was so surprised.
Doing everything. Nothing will keep these people from, exercising.
Exactly.
And I love that. It gives you a sense of motivation. You're driving down the street and you see everybody. Even today, I was talking about it in the car, just seeing everybody, running and cycling and playing volleyball. There's so many opportunities to stay active, so many different sports, so many different things going on. And I think Arlington is actually the healthiest city in America. I think they've been voted like 3 years in a row or something like that. So it's a really good place if you're looking for something like that. Another thing I would say is a sense of community. I feel like because people are outside so often, getting out in nature, getting out and doing different things as far as like exercise or, always, going to some different third space or anything like that. I feel like the sense of community is very strong here. And, as a young, professional, that is very good to, be connected. Even if you're not a young professional, any age, it's good to be connected and stay connected to people. And then speaking back to the professional space, I think DC has a lot of good opportunities. As much as people, kind of rag on it, they're like, oh, politics. There's a lot more than politics that you can do in DC. It's very good for marketing, for technology, for, a few different career paths. So I just think it has a lot of ample opportunity for young people who are aspiring to move up the corporate ladder.
Yeah, at least from what I've noticed and gathered about DC as well, it feels like there's a lot of opportunity for transplants. There's a lot of transplants in the city, and because of that, people are eager to, meet new people, make new connections, which is really exciting. But DC also feels like a mini New York in terms of like, one, career opportunities, opportunities to meet people, but also just like the mindset here as well. Like, to your point, everyone here is like active, always on the move, very similar to New York, but like a little bit less cost of living, but also a little bit more nature. So if you're attracted to what New York has in terms of like jobs, people, nightlife, all that kind of jazz, consider DC, because it's kind of like New York, but just on the water and in the trees. Okay, amazing. Why do you think someone should move here, and why do you think someone should not move here?
I would say you should move here if you are a young professional who's trying to grind and make some good money, because you will make good money here. I think if you're someone, to the same point of community, if you're someone who thrives in community, I think this is a great place for you to be, to meet new people and network and connect. Someone who also is adventurous and likes nature. There's so much to see. You take a 2-hour drive out west and you're in the Shenandoah Mountains. Take a drive up north, you can go to New York in 4 hours, or you even take the train there. Philly is 2 hours away. Pittsburgh is like 3 or 4 hours away. There's North Carolina, Boston, like all of these things are all in this area. So if you're an adventurous person and you like to experience new things, there's so many different things within the area that you can experience on just a weekend trip. Take a long weekend, maybe Memorial Day or 4th of July or something, just being able to kind of experience a lot of different things and a lot of different cultures within a short period of time and for relatively inexpensive to then if you were to, fly from California or if you wanted to go out of the country or something like that. And then in terms of people who I think should not move here, if you're a hermit, I don't think you should move here because it's going to be hard for you to meet new people, and I feel like you're going to be stuck inside all day. And also, if you don't have a good job or if you don't room with people, like if you absolutely refuse to room with people, I would advise you against living here just because the cost of living, like it's serious. It's serious. Most people that I know, even people, me moving a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, a lot of the people that moved here and lived by themselves now have roommates too. So it's the reality of our situation. We have to, do what's best for us. So
indeed, which is very unfortunate. I am someone who I did my roommate journey experience in college, so I've been very adamant about living alone. So right now I'm good. We'll see how I feel after this first year. But I'm very grateful for the space that I have. But regardless, I feel like if you're an introvert here, you're not gonna
take
fare
full advantage.
Yeah, especially just an introvert moving somewhere new in general. It's so important for you to like get yourself out there and just step into your extrovert shell for even like a couple months as you like get acclimated to your new space, because that's the only way that you're going to meet new people and make new connections. And you'll eventually find other introvert friends and you can just like be in a room together, be quiet together. But when you're in like a new space as an introvert, it's very important for you to like just do side quests. I feel like we're very good at doing side quests and just like going out and doing things. And you really just got to be doing things in order to like meet people and just get out there. DC is one of the top 10 cities across the country that young adults are moving to. If the DMV area has always been on your mind, but you don't know where to start in terms of moving here, I got you. I've created a free transplants guide to moving to and living in the DMV area, including neighborhoods, restaurants to try, job opportunities, and so much more. You can get the guide for free at the link in the description. Now, back to the episode. Getting more into living in DC, what is a DC myth that you want to debunk?
I think a DC myth that I want to debunk is that all DC residents are transplants. While there is a lot of transplants, there's a lot of people who are native, who were born and raised in DC, and they will die on that hill. Anybody who's from here will tell you they don't want to leave. DC, Maryland, Virginia, especially Marylanders. Marylanders are through and through. They don't want to go anywhere.
That's funny. Wow. Do you feel like you've met a lot of people like from DC, or like they're like, oh, I'm from Fairfax?
I think I've met more people from Fairfax and Silver Spring and Chevy Chase and all of the surrounding areas. So when people tell you they're from DC, it's not always DC because DC, it's in and of itself is a lot smaller than people might think. There's different quarters and different sections and stuff, and it's just not as big as people think, and it is also more expensive to live in DC than it is to live outside of DC.
Indeed. Yeah. From even you just like helping me with the apartment hunting experience, a lot of people live like just outside of DC so that they can get to the city but have cheaper rent, because in this economy we're all just trying to make it work, make it shake. We are in obviously DC under a very interesting administration that is making a lot of the world scared and just fearful about the future. And I didn't want to, have this episode without talking about it, living in the nation's capital. So with that being said, how do you feel like the current political climate has impacted DC? And just living here, the people here, the conversations you've had, is it something that's constantly, spoken about within the city? Are you scared of the National Guard? Like, are they knocking on your door? Like, what's going on?
Me personally, National Guard does not frighten me when, when it comes to just being out and about in the city. A lot of times they're just kind of walking around. They look bored.
Not bored.
Quite frankly, as long as you're, doing what you need to do and not being shady or doing anything in like a shady area, they tend to be in specific areas. So if you know which areas those are, and just to be aware of your surroundings in those kinds of areas, then you're gonna be fine. But as far as like the political climate, people discuss it every single day, and that's been something that's been going on for even before the administration. People protest, people donate, people do everything in their power to do what it is they need to do in order to change and feel comfortable navigating this political climate. So it's not something that people are shying away from at all here.
Yeah, even in my first few days, like when I was like moving and like just in the city for the first couple of days, there was like protests every single day on every single corner. The people are outside, they've got their signs, they've got their bells and their whistles, and they are really just being super active. And like, I've always been in, I guess, somewhat progressive cities where like it's more like liberal leaning, and I've witnessed different protests, but here it's like to like the nth degree, which I really appreciate, and makes me feel better about the future a little bit, but also we'll see what happens, y'all. What do you think is the most underrated thing about DC?
Underrated. Ooh. I think, I don't want to say nightlife, but like just activities in general. Like there's always something to do in DC. You could like, if you really try, you can genuinely find something new to do every single day. Like last year, I think it was maybe around this time last year, they broke the world record for making the world's largest empanada. They just did it out in public. It was just a bunch of chefs out in, I can't remember where exactly it was, but after they made it, they were just passing, out the pieces of the empanada to people.
Wow.
And there's a lot of like random things like that. Like I think there was like a Drake lookalike contest not too long ago.
There was a Bad Bunny lookalike contest. Bad Bunny one too. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a lot of like random, super niche, cool things that you can just kind of find and stumble upon. They had the Mardi Gras festival too. National Gumbo Day, they were passing gumbo out to people, so they celebrate every single day. There's always something to do. Amen.
Life is worth living, y'all. Life is worth living. I love that a lot of the things that you just mentioned touched on a lot of different cultures, like empanadas, gumbo, the Bad Bunny lookalike contest, which kind of is reflective of the city. Like it feels very diverse. It feels like there's a lot of different people and cultures within the city. Do you feel like that's been your experience living here?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, at first I thought Texas was diverse. Growing up in the area that we grew up in, it was kind of like separated by the tracks, but we had all the minorities tracks on one side, and so it was diverse. And then going to Houston, very black, but also still diverse in the same sense. But moving here, I feel like is like that, but like tenfold. Like there's so many different peoples and different subcultures and different places for you to explore, and it's not just within DC. I think what helps is the fact that like Fairfax, Fairfax has a lot of like Asian culture, a lot of Asian influence, and then Alexandria, there's a lot of Eastern African, Silver Spring, Eastern African, and West Africa, Central Africa. There's a lot of different areas. DC, you get a lot of American food. Alexandria, there's a lot of American food. Just every single area has a different subset and subculture, so you get to experience that through the people and the food.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely racking up my list and excited to try all the different spots. In what ways has DC surprised you?
I feel like it really surprised me in terms of the community. Like a lot of people, they see and hear DC and they're like politics, like
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's just people running around in suits. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot
There's
of that.
a lot of suits
a lot of
here.
people on scooters in their suits and
On the
riding the
scooters
metro.
is crazy. On the scooters is crazy. Because then what if you fall and you...
Exactly.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yes, but that's not all DC is. It really surprised me in terms of how much it actually has to offer in terms of like the community, the opportunities, all of the different colorful cultures and the art too. Noma is a really beautiful art district, and it has a lot of beautiful museums as well. There's so many different museums. Like I was like, okay, there's probably like maybe an art museum or something I can go to. There's like 10. There's 10 different ones you can go to, and they're all, a lot of them are all free. So if you're an art buff too, you can come through and experience all of that as well.
Yep, so many museums. Everyone I talk to is like, "I'll go to the museums." What is the mall?
The National Mall?
Yes, where all the landmarks are.
Yeah.
And like a lot of national malls are like the African American Museum, the Spy Museum. I didn't even know there was a museum dedicated to spies and espionage. So that is on my list. I'm excited for that because remember the Backyardigans?
Super Spy!
Precisely that. That's what I think about every time I hear about like the Spy Museum. So I will be making my way there, hopefully sooner rather than later. But you talked a little bit about this when like going through your fears about moving and like the mental, I guess, obstacles and mental challenges that can come with that. But having, lived here and been here for, almost 2 years and experienced a little bit of adulthood, what is the greatest lesson that DC or just moving away in general has taught you about yourself and others?
I think the biggest lesson that I have learned myself is you are in charge of your own destiny. You control everything, a lot of your life, you go through school and you have that structure of like, okay, you're supposed to be here at this time, you're supposed to do this at this time, all of that from kindergarten all the way up to high school or college, depending on how far you go. But once you get out, you get the real world. You have your 9 to 5, of course, you're working from that time to that time, but all of the outside time, that's only 40 hours a week, and you have 24 hours, 7 days a week. So there's so much more time for you to do things and get things done. And I feel like a lot of people don't know what to do with all of that extra time. In college, you're going to the clubs, you're doing homework, all of the extracurriculars and different things. And once that all stops, I feel like that's where a lot of the post-grad depression kicks in. Is like, oh, there's so, like, I have so much time. Like, this is a time I would usually be spending with my friends, or, I would have gone back home for the weekend and done this or that. But, having all of that time, you have to figure out who you are as a person, what you like to do, in your own free time, and, just really sit down with yourself and have real conversations with yourself. And that's not like a one-time thing. It's like, okay, like I'm going to have this conversation with myself and then I'm going to be, good. I'm going to be fine. This is something you're going to have to constantly reassess and reevaluate. Maybe, once a week, maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter, but something that you're going to have to always be, thinking about in terms of like how you want to guide your life in terms of, different career aspirations, or different things that you want to do in your free time, like things that you want to accomplish, whether it's like traveling goals or fitness goals or different things like that. Like, it's all on you, and that can scare a lot of people, but
indeed
it can also give you a level of pride, of autonomy. It's like, okay, wow, like this is my life, I can do whatever I want. So
yeah. And because of that, a lot of people go to school for like 30 years rather than like facing the real world. Like, I've been watching Girlfriends a lot recently, and one of the characters is like that. But yeah, I really like resonate with a lot of that, especially just like being in your 20s. And like, I've realized that growing into like who you want to be is really an endless process. You're going to do that until the day you die. And it's always just a constant like reevaluation, re-looking at things like 10 different times, and you may think you like something, but then 2 weeks later, 2 years later, you're like, not so much. And that's okay, especially with the conversation that was happening online a lot at the beginning of 2026 was like my rebrand for 2026 and like how I'm going to change my life and all those things, which is definitely great. And like, do make the changes that you want to make in your life in order to become a better person and become, reach your fullest potential. But at the same time, it's not something that's going to happen in like a month or a year. It's like an ever evolving process, because as humans, we're ever evolving beings. And the process of reaching your full potential doesn't end when the clock strikes like 2027, and something that you also touched on that I've really come to realize during my process of like moving to DC and like the past year that I've had, it's not panned out as I would have hoped. And I'll probably touch on this in like a future podcast episode, but me moving to DC was not something that I pictured for myself like a year, 2 years ago. I'm very grateful to be in the position that I am right now, but it was something that I never would have imagined. But in the process of what I've gone through and the life changes that I've experienced in the past like year, 2 years, something that I've really come to realize is like you have to take radical responsibility of your life and the choices you've made, even if they've gotten you to a place that's not ideal and not so great. At the end of the day, you made those decisions. Whether or not someone was influencing you, you're the one in the driver's seat of your life. And in reality, one could say that no decision is a bad decision, especially in your 20s when you're just exploring a lot and just trying a lot of different things. Obviously, in the back of your mind, you know what is really right and wrong, okay? But if you're trying to decide between like grad school or like a new job or different things like that, there really is no wrong decision. You just have to make a decision and make it the right decision for you. So if you're at a crossroads of, should I move to DC? Should I move to California? Should I go back to school? Whatever it may be, I encourage you to not look for external opinions, at least to a certain extent, because I'm definitely someone who will ask everyone's opinion 10,000 times in order for me to like make a decision. But really deep down in my gut, I know what I want. And you're probably the same way. So whenever you're trying to think through those things, especially in this decade of our lives that is full of like so much change and so volatile, really take the time to sit with yourself, think about what you want, and go from there.
Piggybacking off of that, I think a lot of my friends, they ask me a lot of questions, like all of my friends from back home, like, how'd you navigate this? I'm thinking about moving here. I'm thinking about moving there. Some of them want to go to law school, grad school, different, things like that. And they're kind of seeking validation from me because they've seen I've already done it. And so they're like, okay, maybe, I can do it too. Just get up and make the decision, because a lot of time indecision, I think, becomes a decision in and of itself. And then that's something that you have to live with, is that regret of not making a decision. Either, choose to go or choose to stay. But, whenever you choose, make sure that you actually choose.
Indeed. And choose it 100%. And also don't spend too much time like thinking about the past, like, oh, like what could my life have been if I done this, in terms of like thinking about an alternate decision. Like, you made the decision, commit to it, and then go from there. On that note of seeking external advice from other people, can you give some advice to people, anyone who is thinking about moving to DC in this area? What advice would you give them?
I would say the first piece of advice would be realistic.
Ooh.
Because there's of course the cost of living, we talked about it the entire time.
Right.
Just be realistic about commute times,
Oof.
cost of living,
Yeah.
Like where you're gonna stay, because a lot of people would be like, oh, I want to be close to the Capitol, or I want to be close to the White House, or I want to be close to something specific. yes, that makes sense in practice, but on paper, if you run the numbers and it's not making sense, don't be afraid to move out a little further, because that's what everybody does. I know people who started in DC and moved out of DC. I don't know anyone who has moved into DC. So that's just something to be aware of. Another thing of advice, I would say, go outside. Go outside.
Hey, man.
Meet people, touch grass, connect with your inner child. Don't buy a grounding mat. Go, like, genuinely go outside.
What
Put
is
your feet
that?
in the grass. A grounding, you don't know what a grounding mat is?
No.
It's like a mat that's supposed to mimic like grass. Like when you put your feet on it, it mimics like the feeling of putting your feet in the grass.
Just go touch a real grass.
Commercializing nature.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, go outside, get some sun, because that will contribute immensely to your happiness.
Amen. Vitamin D is important, y'all. And if you can't get it, take your supplements or get a hatch. Do whatever you can.
Yes.
Because that'll really, really impact your mental health. On that note, is there a battle between DC, Maryland, and Virginia? Like, where should people live if they're considering moving here? Like, what, in your opinion, is the best place to be?
It's low-key a fake battle. Like, it really depends on who you ask. Like, DC people, they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm from DC." Like Maryland, if somebody from Maryland says, "I'm from DC," they'll clock you.
Oh,
but everyone, it's like the kind of thing where, like, okay, I'm from like Miami, but you're from like 30 minutes outside of Miami, or like, being from Dallas and you're actually from Fort Worth, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. It's like, it depends on who you ask. It's not really, there's no real beef. It's just kind of like a joke kind of thing.
Yeah.
People who are from Arlington or Maryland, like Virginia or Maryland, DC people say, oh, they're from the DMV. They're not from DC. They're from the DMV kind of thing. And Baltimore is an hour and a half.
They can't even claim it.
They some of them will. Some of them will. But Baltimore is its own thing. But in terms of like the best place to live, I think it depends on your preference and what you want to be close to. And kind of where your job is, all of those kinds of things. I would say Maryland is best for people who have a family or want to raise kids or things like that. I think it has a lot of Black culture as well, so I think Africans or African Americans would enjoy Maryland. Virginia, depending on where you're at, Alexandria is also a good place for family. Out near Fairfax is also a good place for family. Arlington, I would say, is the closest to being in DC but not being in DC, just because it has the hustle and bustle corporate kind of life and structure and all of those kinds of things. And then DC proper, I would live in DC proper if you're not a fan of driving and you don't like to drive, because parking there, you're paying $300 a month for a random spot on the street. You don't even get a garage. And then just, gas and the traffic, all the roads, it's not really worth the headache of all of that. So if you're a person who really enjoys walking and using public transportation, all of those different kinds of things, you could save a lot of money by just not bringing a car.
Yeah, one thing about DC, it has a great metro system that I have yet to explore, maybe this weekend, but it's a great city that has reliable public transportation, one of the few in the United States that does so. So if that's something that you already have in your day-to-day life or something that you value, definitely keep that in mind. I, obviously coming from Texas, am very used to just having a car, and like a metro or a bus is not my first train of thought. So I've found myself in very unfortunate situations trying to find parking in DC, or the time the other week when my car got locked in a garage overnight and I had to Uber back to the garage in the morning to get my car and then drive to work. That was very, very humbling. But anyways, I say that to say that DC has good public transportation if that's something that is important to you. Something new that I am doing this season on transplants is an advice segment called The Operating Room. And basically, it's just people who write in about any problem that they're facing about moving to a new city, anything in their 20s that they want some help on. So let's kick it off with the first caller. I was going to say caller. They don't call. The first person. Okay. I just moved to a new city, which is 2,000 miles away from any immediate family, and I can't seem to understand where this uneasy feeling is coming from. Maybe it's the newness of the city or being unfamiliar, but I can't help but feel out of place. I'm 23 and I've never really been on my own. When I did have a place, it was only about 3 hours from my parents, so I was never really out of reach. Now I haven't been here a month and I already feel like I want to pack up and leave. Most of the time, I'm an introvert. I like to be by myself and do things without any disturbance from others. Now I can do that and I feel completely alone. I have no idea why I even feel that way. Maybe because I'm sitting in an empty apartment. This is just very unfamiliar territory for me and I'm not in the safety of my cocoon back in my home state. I hope that I'm not alone in this feeling, and if I'm not, what did you do to adjust? Maybe I should get a pet.
That is really real. I remember experiencing a lot of those feelings. I think first acknowledging that those feelings are normal and that it doesn't make you feel, it's not something that should be like, okay, this is an indication that I have to leave. This is just you adjusting to a new environment. I think the pet thing, as it may have been a joke, but I think that that's a great way for people to feel more comfortable in their space and connect with, even if it's not a person, just connecting with, something that just kind of takes the feeling of loneliness away. I think pets are great with giving unconditional love. And I think that helps, kind of ease and soothe stress a little bit. It was something that I also considered. So just kind of throwing that out there. But I think I heard the fact that the apartment is empty. I think another huge thing is setting it up in a way that reminds you of home, putting up some posters or putting up some art or anything, pictures of the family, all of those different kinds of things. Make your space feel like your space. Don't, keep the walls blank because it's like, oh, I'm only going to be here a year. I feel like I don't need to do all of that. You do need to do all of that because it really, really affects your mental health real. So much. And calling the family, making sure that you're scheduling time out of your week. If you might have a busy work week, but if you make sure that time is scheduled, make sure that you're talking to them at least once a week, maybe every couple of days, or just kind of checking in with them and they're also checking in with you. It's obviously not the same as being there, but it helps to kind of keep you motivated. It's like, okay, I heard from them this week, I can get through this week, and then just kind of taking it week by week until it kind of eases up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. This person also mentioned that they're an introvert, and like you mentioned, definitely give yourself grace within the first couple months even, because it's a lot to adjust to a new place, a new city by yourself. So give yourself grace because you're not going to be 100% acclimated as soon as you get there. But I would advise you to again take it week by week and give yourself side quests to do every week. Like this week I'm gonna sign up for a pottery class and then actually go to the pottery class and follow through. And then this week I'm gonna go to a coffee shop and work and talk to one person that I see. Small things like that start to get you out of your shell and allows you to connect with people in a way that feels approachable and digestible and not overwhelming, not going to a party and feeling overwhelmed in a crazy setting like that. So smaller things that feel approachable to you is something that I would consider. The pet thing, again, pets are not my journey. I don't want another creature in my apartment and all up in my space like that. But if that's something that's your journey, definitely do it. Cause that's also another way that you can meet people. If you have a dog and you go to the dog park, that's an easy avenue for you to meet other human beings.
Just want to add a point to that. Make sure that you document it too. even if you're not a person who, you know, posts on social media in terms of like, okay, like I'm posting this on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, you know, just recording it or taking a picture for yourself, for your own, you know, memories. It helps to, one, keep you accountable, and then two, you have memories to look on, you know, whenever you're in a space where you are more comfortable and you can be like, oh yeah, I remember, you know, how this was. So.
Yeah, the documenting is definitely something that I love to do. Like I love to journal, and reading old journal entries and like seeing the progress of like the mental state I was in then to now is always crazy. So yeah, I love that tip. Amazing. So that is our advice to you. If you also want to submit to the advice line and have us give you some tips in the operating room, you can submit your questions in the link below. Okay, we have reached the end of our conversation. And to close us out, do you have any general tips to the transplants out there?
I say just do it. Stop thinking. Stop, you know, asking for advice. Stop ruminating. Stop doing all of the research. Just go out and do it, because you can mentally prepare yourself all you want, but it's not going to bring you all the way there. The only thing that's going to bring you all the way there is actually physically being there. You don't know exactly what it's going to be like until you get there. So just get there, try it. If you don't like it, this is not a permanent decision. You can always go back.
That part. Home will always be there. Home will always be there. Hey man, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Very welcome.
Do you have anything you want to promote?
My Instagram, Jeremy WK_. My YouTube, Jeremy WK.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for coming on the show, and thank you to everyone for listening. Season 3, we're going to be on tour. We're going to be doing an episode dedicated to different different cities around the US. So stay tuned. If you have a city that you want a deep dive on, let me know, comment below, and maybe you'll see it this season 3. But again, thank you so much for listening. I hope this helped. Please be sure to follow Transplants anywhere you listen to podcasts, in addition to YouTube if you like the visual version. That is all for now. And remember, you're not as alone as you think.